flourishing of Bartlett. And as Americans all over our nation vote today, we are reminded of the truly amazing privileges that we have to vote our conscience and elect officials. And as we gather, our simple prayer is that your will would be done in our nation tonight, on earth as it is in heaven. And this is no trite prayer, Father, but a plea made by millions that our nation, city by city, state by state, would give you honor and would give you glory. And tonight as decisions are made, I pray you would grant each man and each woman here the wisdom to know your will and the courage to do it. We pray this in the name of Jesus, the source of all wisdom. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Fueling. And please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record note that Trustee Ahrens arrived at 7:03 and is present. All right, moving right along. Next, we'll go through the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine and will be enacted by a single motion. There are no separate discussion in these items unless a board member so requests, in which event the item will be removed and put into the general order of business and considered at the appropriate time on the agenda. At this time, is there anything any member of the board would like to add to the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Trustee Shipman, seconded by Trustee Martin. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Ahrens?
Yes.
Camerer?
Yes.
Carbonaro?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ranke?
Yes.
Chipman?
Yes. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is under a Treasurer's report. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start out this evening with the sales tax report through August of our fiscal year 2015. Fiscal year-to-date revenue is $760,370 and represents a 3.5% increase over the same time period from last year. Moving on to the motor fuel tax allotment report. Fiscal year-to-date revenue through September 2014, $638,332, and currently represents an 18.45% increase over the same time period last year.
Is there any big reason for that huge of an increase? Is that normal?
It could be a timing issue from when we received allotments back in September 2013 compared to 2014.
Thanks, Jeff. Next item on our agenda is President's Report. We have none this evening. Next item is question and answer. At this point, is there any questions that the board would have? Hearing none, we'll move on to the town hall portion of the meeting. This is part of the meeting. If anybody would like to address the board, please step up to the podium. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Anybody would like to address the board at this time?
Hi, Richard Lewis from 868 Braintree Lane. Regarding the Braintree Norwood cut-through area, and I'll try to stay as brief as I can here. Just on behalf of the residents of the cut-through area, we're here to request a resolution of the traffic issues that were discussed during the new Walgreens approval process approximately a year ago. I've met with the village staff representative several times over the past 12 months, discussed options and shared those options with the residents. For feedback, discussion, and debate, 3 potential options really came from these discussions. One was to close Norwood to traffic at the Mall neighborhood junction. The other was to add speed humps along the cut-through route, or to add no turn at peak time signs at Stearns and Braintree or Braintree and Norwood. As I shared with you via email, the neighborhood conducted a vote of those potential options, and the overwhelming response was 74% believed that closing the Norwood was the best solution. Just as many were as opposed to the no turn signs option. The no turn signs options creates an incredible burden for the residents of the neighborhood, since we too would have to obey those no turn signs. After a lot of discussion, it really became clear that closing Norwood was really the only cost-effective option, in our opinion, for the long-term solution. The safety and serenity of the residential neighborhood, we felt, outweighed the convenience of a few people to get to McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts a few seconds faster than they normally could. It seemed that the main arguments against closing Norwood is about the emergency vehicle access. Emergency vehicle access could be easily addressed by a dead-end T on Norwood to allow turnaround, installing a gate that could be easily opened by emergency personnel, or simply installing low-cut curbs with minimal landscaping that could be run over by emergency vehicles if were necessary. Early on, the village staff was able to draw up some drawings with what a cul-de-sac may look like, and we were able to tell that would certainly take up too much of the front yard of those locations there. However, we still think that dead NT or gator curbs could be possible, and we haven't been able quite to be able to take a look at what that may look like, but we've exchanged some emails. It looks like we can at least pull some of those types of drawings together. I do want to address, and I apologize, I think I'm going over, but address a misconception that the traffic congestion at Stearns and 59 is the case, or is the cause for the cut-through traffic. While there are certainly some drivers that do cut through because of the congestion, really the main cause of the cut-through traffic is because it's the shortest, least encumbered path to the north end shopping area of the mall there. That is why we see cars cutting through during all hours, often when there's little to no traffic at Stearns and 59. This brings us to the proposed improvements at Stearns and 59. While some of those would certainly help at that intersection, and I understand there may be some redrafting of those plans to allow for left turns out of the mall area onto Stearns, but you're still talking about cutting across multiple lanes of traffic to get back onto Stearns when it's more easy to cut through the neighborhood. But the point I really want to make sure is heard is that even if there's absolutely no traffic congestion at 59 and Stearns, drivers still cut through our neighborhood because it's the fastest way to get to the fast food establishments. It happens now at 5 in the morning when there's no traffic to speak of at the intersection, and drivers still cut through to get to McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts. One other concern that has come up is the potential for drivers to cut through at Auburn instead of Norwood if Norwood were closed. The important takeaway here is that the majority of the cut-through traffic on Norwood, again, is not to avoid the congestion on 59. And I can tell you personally, watching this very closely, that more than 90% of the traffic cutting through is from the shopping area at peak times. I'm going to actually skip some of this and just get to the point that, really to conclude, the main point to coming here tonight is to hopefully move the process along to start to bring to close the commitment made during the Walgreens discussion to work through the problem of the cut-through traffic. We have investigated and seriously discussed several solutions, but at the end of the day, it's become abundantly clear that the overall amount of traffic coming in and out of the shopping area will continue to grow dramatically in the years to come, and that the closing Norwood is the most rational, cost-effective, long-term solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board at this time? Hearing none, we'll move along to the standing committee reports. First standing committee report is Planning and Zoning Chairman CAMERER.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight we have nothing, so there's nothing to report.
Thank you, Chairman CAMERER. Next standing committee report is under Building Committee, Chairman Martin.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have nothing tonight. No report.
Thank you, Chairman Martin. Next standing committee report is Finance and Golf Committee, Chairman Ranke.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have one item on tonight's Finance and Golf Committee, the approval of the 2014 estimated tax levy in the amount of $9,344,699. We discussed this previously at the committee level of Finance and Golf. So, Jeff, if you have anything to add, please do so.
I'd be happy to. Again, just to reiterate, this levy is a 1.49% overall reduction from the 2013 property tax levy extension. In the past 2 years, we've reduced the levy now almost $700,000. Again, we're estimating about a 3% decrease overall in EAV. We're proposing abatements in this levy of $284,053. And the estimated rates in both counties. In Cook County, we're estimating a rate of $1.0942 per $100 of EAV, and in DuPage County, we're estimating a rate of .9857 per $100 of EAV. Tomorrow, we will publish in the newspaper our intention to have a public hearing at the November 18th meeting, of which we will hold a public hearing, and then on December 4th, we're scheduled to adopt this levy and file it no later than the fourth Tuesday in December.
Any questions from the board? I move that the estimated 2014 property tax levy be established at $9,344,699.
Second.
It's moved by Trustee Ranke, seconded by Trustee Camerer. Is there any discussion?
I think it's good that we're looking at a decrease. I wish other local governmental entities, the state and the federal government, would take a lesson and work hard to make some cuts. I think we'd all be better off because of it. But thanks to staff for doing a great job on this.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Aaron's?
Yes.
Camerer?
Yes?
Carbonaro?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ranke?
Yes.
Shipman?
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you, Chairman Ranke. Next item on our standing committee reports is under License and Ordinance Committee. Chairman Carbonaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nothing to report this evening.
Thank you, Chairman Carbonaro. Next on our standing committee reports is Police and Health Committee. Chairman Shipman.
Thank you, Mayor. We have one item this evening. That is the approval of a fee proposal and appointment of an administrative hearing officer. As we'll all recall, on September 16th, we approved an ordinance regarding the implementation of an administrative adjudication for ordinance violations. This allows the village and staff to more swiftly and economically handle the handling of local ordinance violations for minor infractions and for local ordinances. And it also provides, of course, for our residents some benefit in that they have a local place to go where the fines are potentially a little bit less or a whole lot easier to handle. With that, I would move that we pass Resolution 2014-88, a resolution approving of the proposal of Storino, Ramello, and Durkin for administrative hearing officer services.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Shipman, seconded by Trustee Martin. Are there any discussion?
Yes, actually, I do have some questions. That being, basically, I remember us having a discussion of implementing this ordinance. However, I don't remember us having a discussion of just putting this law firm before us and saying this is the choice that we've made. There were no other choices. It seems like with most things we might have had other options here. Is that?
One of the reasons we brought forward a contract is this is the law firm and the specific attorney who's been doing our local ordinance tow hearings for many years and done so very successfully. I think he plans to, and one of the reasons why the rate is pretty low, he plans to coordinate when he's already here doing our tow hearings with some of the other hearings. So certainly that's the background to that particular firm.
It just seems a little unusual that for most things we would have at least had other companies come in and say, here's what we can offer to do for you. So I'm just kind of surprised that we didn't do that.
Have we ever had a problem with them?
No, we have not. I think given the, there was another actually resume that the mayor took a look at, and I think that there was not the experience, and certainly it would be more expensive. I think this is a very, very reasonable cost.
And how long have we used them?
Well, as long as we've had tow hearings, which has been probably 4 years.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Aaron's?
Yes.
Camerer?
Yes.
Carbonaro?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ranky?
Yes.
Shipman?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Nothing else on Police and Health Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Shipman. Next item on the standing committee reports under Public Works is Chairman Aaron's.
Thank you. Our only agenda item is the FEMA food control project bids. Now, I went through every bid and added them up. Oh, no, I Jeff, if you want to take us through this, I would appreciate it. Or Dan.
Thank you. We had 8 bids that we received on October 21st, and as you see, the bids actually came in higher than we anticipated and above budget, but we went to work with Darren Olson from Christopher Burke, and we were able to discuss with Earthworks some reductions to get the price closer down to the budget number. Those revisions do not impact the stormwater benefit that we will be receiving when this project is done. The Streamwood Detention Basin, which is the large basin to the east of Prospect, north of the railroad tracks, that's where the majority of the stormwater volume is. That volume stays in place, but what we did is from the normal water level down below, we had actually excavated more earth to get a different type of plant species in there, and Darren would be able to explain that better than I could, but basically we're avoiding some of the excavation, raising the bottom of the pond, and putting in a seed mix instead of plugs. We're using a seed mix, which saves a significant amount of money. That whole change is in the order of about $430,000. But like I said, the stormwater benefit is there. The difference is it would provide a more efficient water quality benefit. We're still going to have a water quality benefit, but not as much as we would have if we could have went with the original design. But we're still making improvements stormwater-wise and water quality-wise. Then we're also reducing the amount of jacked-in-place pipe, which is a pipeline that's going, we have to cross a gas pipeline, and they have to directionally drill that. We're reducing the length that we need on that. That saves $75,000. We're also moving any of the road work onto our MFT project, which allows us to use MFT funds. And then we're also using seed instead of sod, saves a few $1,000s there. There's an existing pump station that we can abandon in place rather than remove it. So we went through and tried to trim everything we can, but still have the overall benefit, and we have accomplished that with about a $38,000 overage in the budget, which we feel we can meet with the capital budget.
Let me just add, in terms of a broader perspective on this, when we opened bids, we realized that the low bidder was $600,000 over the amount that we had in the budget. And wanted to keep this on track, wanted to be able to reduce it quickly, and reducing it, you have to do it with a scalpel because of the cost-benefit analysis that FEMA does on our project. If we cut the wrong thing or we cut too much, then FEMA's going to reduce our grant. And Darren and Dan were able to do that in about 3 days, so we kept this project on track and on the same agenda it was supposed to be on, and reduced the overage from $600,000 to $38,000, and so I think that was quite a feat.
Good job. Well, at this time then, I move to approve Resolution 2014-89. 89.
Second.
A resolution awarding the bid for the Bartlett FEMA Flood Control Project and the agreement between the Village of Bartlett and Earthworks Land Improvement and Development Corporation for said project and approving change order number 1.
Second.
It's been moved by Trustee Aaron, seconded by Trustee Camerer. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have a couple of concerns. Who gave us the engineer's estimate? What company?
That'd be Christopher Burke.
We prepared the engineer's estimate, and as you recall, since we just had the dedication, we had excavation numbers from a recently completed project, that Beaver Pond project. So we used the numbers, we inflated them, but still the excavation cost was much higher on this recent bid than it was in our previous projects.
So the 20% discrepancy between the engineer's estimate and the lowest estimate that we got was because of excavation costs?
That's the primary one. So we needed to include additional cuts in order to get that back to the original, close to the grant amount. And by doing that, those changes that Dan described, we were able to do that.
Let me try to spell out my concerns for you here. Is that, and I understand what Dan said, I think, but staff and some of the all of the elected officials and many residents have been working together for almost 10 years now on this project with the promise that we're going to stop your flooding. And everybody did a great job of bringing together some federal money and finding some money in the budget to make this happen, to give relief to the people, of the residents of Hearthwood Farms. But now we're telling them, well, we really didn't have to do what we initially said. We can do it for cheaper if we do things a little bit less. That's the message, I think, that's being portrayed. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we clarify. The big item here, of course, is the flood control benefits, the amount of storage that we're providing and the benefit to the residents in terms of reduction in the frequency and flooding. And that's the same with both projects. The one, the higher one, the bid that came in that was higher, as well as the revised one. The flood control benefits are the same. As Dan described, we're going to leave some things that were going to be taken out, that pump station as an example, and we did other changes to bring it back down. But we did not sacrifice the flood control benefits to the residents.
And the biggest change monetarily, Dan, I think you said, was the plugs?
What we did is we're planting it with a wetland-type vegetation on the bottom, and rather than doing plugs, which are expensive, we're going to use seed mixes, and we're not going to bring the bottom down as much as we were before. That does not affect the flood control benefits. All it does is reduce the volume of excavation.
Okay.
I'm not sure I quite understand that.
Okay.
The primary goal for the project was the flood control benefit, right?
Yes. And we're keeping that exactly the same.
If we found out that we could do it for $600,000 cheaper, why wouldn't that have been the original estimate?
When we go there first. Yes, that's a great question, and the reason is that we wanted to have a higher quality type wetland vegetation, achieve wetland water quality benefits, not the flood control benefits, and we are going to remove some things. We are going to have more jacked in place pipe, as you heard, and is this is this, we're not sacrificing the flood control benefits, but we pared down the other appurtenances and the other supplemental work to make sure we kept the benefits the same from a flood control perspective.
So just so I understand, is it safe to say that there were a few different ways to get to the end result, which are the flood control benefits, some of which might have been more beneficial or just fancier, or what?
I don't think fancy is the right word, but ideally that we would have had additional enhancements from a water quality perspective, and because the cost of excavating out was 200%, 100%, 200%? 200% greater than the project that we did a year and a half ago. We had to cut and cut and cut. And Darren explained to me that he and the other staff engineers did not sleep very well, knowing that they had to cut and still keep the same benefits. And so we came up with a project that is not sacrificing the flood control benefits.
Yeah.
I recall when we started this project, we did the first phase, which wasn't in the wetlands, and Mr. Burke told us there would be this huge range in his estimate because we didn't know what the cost of excavation would be. It's a function of where they can take the dirt to and what other projects are going. So there was a big range with the first go-round. Then when it was designed, wasn't it the IDNR, all of a sudden put a crimp in the whole project and wanted wetland plants on the bottom. So that was something to comply with. It was designed originally with this flood control. I'm also told that because the Army Corps and the wetlands, they have to put these mats down to do the work on the bottom of the pond, that add about $1 million. And so what wasn't expected was the 200% increase. It was estimated at 150% increase, which would, presumably be a pretty good estimate in terms of a range to try and plan for that. The bids came in higher, and we did it as a unit price contract so that we could cut some of those things if we could, and you can negotiate with the low bidder, and we have these unit prices so they couldn't really take advantage in terms of price, and there was what we would call value engineering that Burke Engineering did with respect to these plants, but it was because of the inordinately increase in cost.
I understand that portion because it really defines that in the report here. The thing that I'm curious about is, had we not had to cut it, what benefits would we have gotten?
Sure. Well, you would have sod rather than seed. You'd have a different type of wetland community. The bottom would be deeper, not the bottom, as Dan said, below the invert elevation, which controls the flood control benefits. There would be better water quality benefits and some other changes. What else, Darren? Anything else that I'm missing? Yeah. We're going to leave the non-functional pump station, and in the future, if monies became available, you'll have to remove it. So we did things up front to complete the project in the best way possible, and now we're still, as I said before, I'll say it again, still having the same flood control benefits, but we cut it back to minimize any additional costs.
I can assure you we're going to have to rehearse that line, Mr. Burke, if we do have a flood back there again, because we're, this is the main goal for that, and this will come back to us and say, okay, what did you cut back when? So
Sure.
we kind of got to understand it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things, if we cut back the flood control benefits, we would have had to go back to the FEMA and say, look, we're not getting the same benefits that we said, and therefore the grant needs to be reduced. And that was the ultimate goal, to keep the benefits the same.
Thank you for the explanation. Is there any other question? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Ahrens?
Yes.
Camerer?
Yes.
Carbonaro?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ranky?
Yes.
Shipman?
Yes. That motion carries.
And that concludes the Public Works Committee for tonight.
Thank you, Chairman Ahrens. The next item we have on our agenda this evening is under new business. At this point, does anyone have any new business for the good of the order? Come on, somebody has to have something while we're fumbling through our paper. Which one is that? Okay. Anyone? The village president and board agreement appointment of SRD. I hereby appoint Thomas Bastian as the primary administrative hearing officer, as we discussed earlier, and in the event of his unavailability, Angelo Del Marto and/or Peter Paccioni of the law firm of Storino, Romello, and Durkin for the administrative education of ordinance violations. So that's appointed. And I'd entertain a motion to
Consent to
that appointment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Aaron's, seconded by Trustee Shipman. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Aaron's?
Yes.
Camerer?
Yes.
Carbonaro?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ranky?
Yes.
Shipman?
Yes.
It carries. If there's no other new business, we'll move to question and answers. Is there any questions at this point?
When we do the invocations, are we just using, we're using any denomination in the village?
Yes.
Do we have a pecking order, or, I mean, personally, I would like to invite BAPS. They're part of our community.
Mm-hmm.
Just outreach and at least,
Absolutely.
Good idea.
We can add them.
seeing it was just their new year.
Anything else? Hearing none, I will let the audience know also that as soon as we adjourn the board meeting, we'll be moving right directly into the committee of the whole meeting, and at such time we'll also be adjourning into an executive session to discuss the sale or lease of property pursuant to Section 2C6 of the Open Meetings Act. That being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Camerer, seconded by Trustee Martin. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Aaron?
Yes.
Camerer?
Yes.
Carbonaro?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ranky?
Yes.
Shipman?
Yes.
We are adjourned.